I'ma work for it, ride for it. I'ma organize for it. Stay up in the night and in the morning, I'ma rise for it. Heart for it, mind for it, ears for it, eyes for it, peace and a place on this earth for me and mine for it. Work for it, ride for it, I'ma organize for it. Stay up in the night and in the morning, I'ma rise for it. Heart for it, mind for it, ears for it, eyes for it, peace and a place on this earth for me and mine for it.
We're here today on the Money, Power, Land Solidarity podcast. We're recording with, Dr. Robin Bell?
Yeah, it's actually Reverend Dr. Robin Bell.
Reverend Dr. Robin Bell Sr., welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jake.
All right, great. So could you start maybe by reading for our audience the very powerful letter that you and 9 other faith leaders from North Minneapolis submitted this week to city and state leadership concerning the Upper Harbor Terminal?
Okay. And I got to give a shout out to a brother, and he knows who he is, so I won't mention his name, but AKA Batman, and I'm Robin.
There you go.
Upper Harbor Terminal, the connection between police brutality and land ownership. The killing of Black and brown bodies by the police is directly connected to the history of the United States' quest for land and profit. America was founded on stolen land and human bondage, and its operating system is still based on a hierarchy of human value. Policing in the United States is a direct descendant of the slave patrols that were developed to control enslaved Black people who were in bondage to fuel American capitalism. The profitability of the Cotton Empire created an explosion of wealth for America. To maintain that profit, cotton required more and more land, which America took from Native Americans, many times by military force, and sold it to land speculators who quickly resold the land for twice the price. The history of land ownership and development is rooted in the fundamental realities of systemic racism that continues to this day. In Minneapolis, the proposed Upper Harbor development in North Minneapolis continues to perpetuate this injustice. The murder of George Floyd has shown a spotlight on the embedded racism in our community, and the calls for drastic changes to our police force are more than warranted. However, if we do not attack the foundational issue, which is racism, in all of the systems that govern our everyday lives, we will never achieve equality for all people. The Upper Harbor development could be a transformational project in the city of Minneapolis. Land development does not have to continue to be an extractive wealth process. Yet starting the project by proposing the sale of city-owned land to a white-owned real estate company while requesting $20 million in state bonding to support a performance center benefiting another white-owned company clearly demonstrates the depth of injustice baked into the current system. As faith leaders in North Minneapolis, we believe that the leaders of the Minneapolis City Council and our state legislator will listen to our requests to fundamentally change the process and the resulting outcomes from an inequitable to the equitable. We all have a moral imperative to fight for change for our children's lives. Our proposal outlined below would be the start of a new reality in Minneapolis when it comes to the development process in communities of color. A 10-point plan for equitable development at the Upper Harbor Terminal. Number 1, stop all facets of current development process and move the leadership of the project from economic development at the city of Minneapolis to long-range community planning at the city of Minneapolis. Deny 20 million bonding requests to the Minnesota legislator by the city of Minneapolis for the Upper Harbor development. Number 3, disband the collaborative planning committee and develop a new community engagement process that includes North Minneapolis residents, the Native American community, and community-led and centered on racial equity. Point number 4, support a process to create a community vision for the project while expanding community voice and power. Residents should own the vision and the process. Community participation is not an advisory process. Allow for sufficient time to develop the vision so that we can go fast, so that you can go fast or you can go far. Wealth creation and ownership for community members should be the primary outcomes of the development. The next point, consult with national experts on wealth building and ownership, including the Democracy Collaborative, Neighborhood Investment Company, Mercy Corporation, the Kauffman Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, and others. Integrate local expertise, including the Center for Economic Inclusion's Cura Creative Initiative, Minnesota Design Center, MN, AIA, NOMA, and others. Brown, indigenous people of color professionals should have leadership roles in the planning, design, financing, and construction of the project. Develop a strategy for cross-sector involvement that supports local entrepreneurship, links training to employment, focusing on jobs for those with barriers to employment, and includes employer needs for high-quality employees. This strategy would include secondary, technical, and post-secondary educational institutions, along with state, local, and nonprofit employment and training organizations. Point number 9, focus on systems change throughout the process and project. And number 10, create a true collaborative between community, the city of Minneapolis, and the Minneapolis Park and Recreational Board. Right now, we are at a moment in our cities and countries at this particular time in history where we are witnessing change every day. Things that we thought were not possible only a few short weeks ago are now a possibility. The Upper Harbor Terminal Project can be a national model for how to dismantle systemic racism in the community development process. Will you stand with us and be a part of this historic opportunity to see justice?
Wow. Thank you for reading that.
You're welcome. Yes.
That's something. I just want to say thanks again and just give my initial responses, if that's okay. When I read that, I was just very thankful to hear people getting to the core of the issue. What I've experienced in this project after watching for many years is folks raise concern. It becomes so obvious that the project is flawed, and then a new trick or a new technical solution or a new way to avoid the root of the issue is developed. And what's laid out so clearly in that letter is that none of that is sufficient, and none of that really taps the potential that exists in this land, So just calling back to the roots, and then just to say, in this moment of uprising and cause about really, abolishing the police and rethinking community safety, I like how you all are pointing back to the foundation, that you can't just get rid of the police, because the truth is that police protect a certain property arrangement and a certain power arrangement and racial and class hierarchy. So if we're serious about changing that system, that means that we have to go to those power and property relationships. And I thought it really untied a knot in me to hear somebody naming those things in this moment. That's so important, So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. And that's a powerful analysis, my brother. Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts? Kind of like, we talked a bit this morning. Just curious if there's pieces in the letter that you want to highlight or reflections that you have since you all put that letter together, or, any embellishments?
Yeah, just a few that I think is real significant. I hope we can truly get a pause, because this, the framing of this proposal is typical. It has a history, a racial history. It's a narrative of domination and supremacy. And what's powerful here, underneath all of that, is this discourse. It's formational in its nature of what it means to be human. And if we allow this narrative to unfold in the material world, it will also have a formational aspect on our nature, in our children's nature. See, information discourse can be, it's formational in nature. It can be transformative or it can be deformative. And this proposal, if it happens for years and years and years until they redevelop it again, will have a deformational aspect on what it means to be human. It says something about our identity as a community, in particular, Black, brown, and indigenous people of color, and wonderful-looking white people who don't believe in whiteness and white supremacy. It will have it's a commentary that we have allowed. We're saying that the purpose of living is to be a consumer. Because what's insidious, as you pointed out earlier in that we talked earlier, the insidious piece is that they're framing it as an entertainment venue. They're framing it in a way that, this is somehow gonna add value to the North Side because it's paying attention to upper scale values on what you do with public space.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a profound point that you made, and you articulated it in a way that we've tried a couple times over this show, because we really started paying attention to the Upper Harbor based on the experience of seeing Northeast Minneapolis gentrified. That's where I was raised, Northeast Minneapolis, and we saw the riverbank really be seized by wealthier people, a lot of people be displaced, and thinking about the narrative that you hear, the discourse, the framing that they put around these projects, it has a tangible material impact. And what I recognize is that when you're not included, all of a sudden these big machines show up in your neighborhood and start digging up ground and tearing down buildings and rebuilding buildings and renaming, and new people come in. The message that it sends to you is that you don't have power. You're not included in things like this. The best you could do is hopefully get enough money to be a part of the club. And then I'm thinking of the process that you all laid out and what it would look like to have a formative, a generative process. And if people were really engaged in that and able to be on that land and be involved, that has the opposite effect. People build their power and their consciousness through participating in a project like that. So even from my perspective as a working class white person, if I feel that alienated in that level of violence, then I know that over North and with Black people and indigenous people and brown people, that trauma is that much deeper and that violence is so much more apparent. So yeah, and rarely do we get to discuss it in those ways in these city processes, because they put a nice sheen on things and kind of give you a sales pitch.
Mm-hmm. And I want to put an appeal out to our political leadership and religious leadership too. I mean, this project represents our individual and group identity. And if this project happens, the project represents the image of people who don't even live in the community. It will represent white dominance and privilege. It says nothing about our love for each other as brown, black, good white people, indigenous people of color. I mean, that would be like me going out to Wyzetta and building a project, a cultural project that doesn't represent or reflect the values of that community. And then go in there and spend money, and it's not going to circulate in their neighborhood. It's going to fill my pockets. I mean, is this actually what we want to leave our children with?
And the way you name it so clearly, that's absolutely right. To think in this context that they're actually even considering handing over public land in North Minneapolis to the wealthiest white people in the state. Some of the wealthiest white people in the country who are already dominant players in the real estate market. That's exactly what it says. It's a complete continuation of this colonial legacy that you talked about. When there's an opportunity to profit off of land speculation and land ownership, it automatically is assumed that the state is going to help the wealthiest white people continue to dominate, and that's got to stop. And this is an opportunity for it to stop, and that's connected to these uprisings. This is the way to take it from just, I support all the protests in the street, and then recognize that we have to take it deeper into these systems, into these land projects. So it's just, I really appreciate you saying it so clearly and circulating that letter. And just like you said, making the appeal to the political leadership, and then to appeal to the listeners that right now, there's a state bonding process at the state legislature where, some of this money is being decided. There's a request for public money to go to First Avenue. And the reason why this letter was so timely is because it's easy for them to slip away to the state capitol and to do these things behind people's backs. And this is an important decision. And to point back to that piece of this letter, one of those key demands is to stop this bonding money, because once that goes through, they kind of dig their claws in deeper. But if we could stop that money, that opens up a lot of space.
Yes.
Great. Well, do you have any other thoughts? I kind of got to make it a short one today because I got a work meeting.
I just want to make an appeal to my other brothers and sisters. We got to stand up on this one here.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Well, thanks for joining us. We're here today with the Reverend Dr. Robin Bell, Sr., one of the signatories onto this powerful letter that was from Northside faith leaders to the Minneapolis City Council, to the state lawmakers, really calling the Upper Harbor Terminal what it is in plain terms and asking for a complete transformation of the project, and that set forth a good vision and some really good practical steps. We'll probably come back to this letter when we have some more time on our show and dig through it. So really appreciate it. Really appreciate you talking with us on short notice, and love to your family.
Brother Jake.
All right, I'll be in touch.
More than that.
Take care.
You too.
We need money, land, solidarity. If you funny, stand very far away from me. We have running plans about as far as they can see to keep them coming. Bands building up the